Welcome to my channel. Our story today comes from a lady. She got divorced very early, living a difficult life alone with her daughter. In the hospital, her heart stopped beating, came to the other side, and finally came back. Let's hear her story together. Before the story begins, let me tell you a little about me. I am now a 51-year-old woman. I have been divorced for many years. I live alone. I have a dog to keep me company. I am afflicted with multiple illnesses. I spend most of my time at home. I could not go out to work and life had no meaning for me. Every day was a repetitive life. I have a home health aide who comes here 3 times a week. She was fresh out of school and not very skilled at many tasks, but she was patient. As time went on, she got better and better at her job. She also talks to me a lot, which makes me feel very happy. I have a daughter who works in another city. She just got divorced a few months ago. Her husband drinks a lot and occasionally assaults her. I was supportive of her decision and often comfort her on the phone. She was the only reason I was here. I planned at the time that I would end my life once she was stable in her own life. I was a preemie and my health was always poor. When I was 26 years old, I suffered a very serious back injury. I was unable to stand or walk. I was then admitted to the hospital. The doctor told me that I might never walk again. I felt that life was in darkness. Why did I have to suffer so much? My husband and I had divorced and I struggled to raise my daughter. To make her life better, I got 2 jobs. But now, I can no longer continue to work. Although the government has some welfare payments, we are still struggling to make ends meet. As time went on, my illness got worse. I was losing weight rapidly. No doctor could figure out what was wrong with me. The doctors told me that they did not know anything about the disease I had. There was no treatment or surgery that could help me. My life was getting more and more negative because of my disease. I was so young and it made me very desperate not to be able to live a normal life. I feel that I will never have love in my life again. I am afraid that my daughter will grow up because she will move out when she grows up. I would be so lonely. I was afraid that day would come. One day, I was home alone and suddenly I felt tightness in my chest. It was hard to breathe. I felt like I was going to die soon. Instead, I felt it was a relief. But then, a neighbor found out. Took me to the hospital. In the intensive care unit, many relatives came outside. I didn't realize how bad my condition was. My ex-husband appeared in the ward with my daughter. He told me not to worry about my daughter, because he would take good care of her. I knew he did love her. That's all I remember about the visit. Later, my daughter told me that she was there with her father, talking to me but not responding to them. She thought I was asleep. Suddenly, the heart monitor made a very long sound. The wavy line turned into a straight line. Yes, my heart had stopped. I was dead. In front of my daughter and ex-husband. The doctor entered the room again and asked them to wait outside. At this point, 5 doctors and nurses gathered around me. They pulled the curtain closed. I felt myself going further and further into the room. I had never been so relaxed. When I opened my eyes, I was in another world. I had never seen a place so pure. It was so peaceful and serene. I could tell there was no disease or pain here. There was nothing negative here. There was no bad or evil. The more I saw, the better things seemed to get around me. There was a color here I had never seen before, much less know how to describe it. As I continued drifting, I saw many people, but I couldn't tell their gender or age, because they only had the outline of human beings. Each one radiated light. There were many people there. So many that I couldn't count them. I wanted to move on. I wanted to know what this place was. As I approached them, one person came up to me. She walked up to me and held my hand. The others stayed where they were. They looked as if they were talking to each other. I know the woman and I talked for a while, but I don't remember what we said. When I opened my eyes again, I felt pain. My head was tilted. But there was no way I could lift my head. I looked to my left and there stood a stranger. He said, "You must be uncomfortable like this. Let me help you." Then he said, "You're scaring us, young lady." I looked around and I was back in the hospital. The man I had just spoken to was a doctor. I didn't want to talk at that time. I felt very sad. I was confused. I closed my eyes again because I wanted to go back to the feeling I had just had. There was no response. It felt like a dream, but it was so real. Until many years later. One night, I was watching TV. Someone said they had a near-death experience. I gradually realized that this was something that happened to me too. This kind of thing doesn't come up in everyday conversation, so I knew nothing about it. The more I saw things like this on TV, the more certain I became that it was real. When I tried to talk to people about it, I was met with skepticism. Doubt that things were really happening to me or that I was just dreaming about it. Since that day, I have changed a lot of my thoughts and feelings. I am now unable to go to work normally. But I go to the hospital all the time. Talk to the patients there. I will share my experience to them. I hope I can help them. Death is not that scary. Don't be afraid of death. We talk to each other about death. I don't know why I am still alive today. My life has not been good. I'm still trying to live. For the past few months, I've needed help going to the bathroom. My financial situation is poor. On hot days, I can't even afford to buy an ice cream. Sometimes I would ask God why He wanted me back. I suffered physical pain and had to suffer mental loneliness. Before my experience, I was in the hospital with my mother. She was dying of cancer at the time. The morning of her death, I heard her take a deep breath. Then I saw her eyes widen. She looked around the room in amazement. I ran to call the doctor. I wondered what my mother had seen that brought such a look of surprise to her face. For weeks before, she hadn't opened her eyes. After what I went through, she must have seen heaven. She should be having a good time in heaven right now. Some days I do think about death. But I can't bear to leave my daughter. I am not afraid of death now. I don't think God is willing to take me away. Maybe I still have work to finish. I share my story to more people. Don't lose hope in life, everything will turn out fine. I also believe that one day, I will return to my one true home. Death is not the end of life.